Hey guys, it's Libby, and here's that video I promised about why I left BookTube, and I'll also let you know why I came back. And maybe we'll discuss some plans going forward. And by we, I do mean me. You guys are, I can't hear you. I just can't. Um, yeah, I took about 3 years off of making videos on BookTube. I did start uploading a podcast that I do with my spouse called Double Feature Reviews, where we review films, not completely unrelated to books. But I am genuinely curious how many crossover viewers I have, like how many people are watching both the BookTube content and the podcast. I haven't figured out a way to get YouTube analytics to tell me that, but that is something that I'm interested in. Anyone who stuck around for the movie review podcast, thank you. I'm gonna keep doing it, and I'm trying to figure out a way to upload it to places that aren't YouTube without paying somebody $15 a month, because that's really not worth it to us. Anyway, so I took some time off BookTube. Why is that? We're going to start with the stupidest reason. The stupidest reason is that I wanted to go back to my natural hair color. As you can see, there are many debates about whether this is blonde or brown or blonde, mousy, whatever. I used to be dyeing my hair vivid red. I wanted to go back to this. And that's because it was sort of inconvenient to dye every month. You know, it's a multi-hour process. Also, all of the dyes I was using, I tried a couple different brands. All of them would stain fabrics pretty easily. So I had to live with permanently stained pillowcases, permanently stained towels. It was worse within the first, before the first shower post dyeing, and then by the third shower post dyeing, it would mostly not stain things, but I still had to be really careful when I was wearing light colored clothes, because if my hair got wet and touched the clothes, they might stain permanently. So I was kind of done with dyeing my hair, and I knew that when I went back to natural, I would have to go through a phase of my hair not looking very good. And I was absolutely too vain to just sort of publish that on YouTube for multiple years of my hair returning to normal. I did end up over dyeing my hair blonde. It's still a little bit lighter than my natural hair, and I'm actually not even sure where that is anymore, but somewhere in there is the transition from dyed hair to my natural hair. But I've decided it now looks acceptable, and I'm ready to appear in public again. So that's the stupidest reason. There's another slightly less stupid reason. This is one that I could have fixed, but I tried and it was hard, so I gave up. And that is the editing software I was using. So I used, and I still am using, Hitfilm Express, which is a very powerful video editing software. They advertise that this has been used to edit professional Hollywood pictures. And this means it's a way more powerful editing system than I need. And that's fine. I can just not use most of the features. The only thing I need to do is cut out the segments of my videos where I just go, and try to think of what the next thing I'm going to say is. And also occasionally add videos or text of book covers, etc. So I really don't need that powerful of an editing software. But I couldn't find another one that I liked. So I was using Hitfilm, and because it's so powerful, it's more powerful than my computer can handle. I don't buy a computer for the purpose of editing and exporting videos on it. It got to the point where exports were taking longer and longer. On one occasion, it exported so hard that it damaged my computer. My laptop got so hot that it was damaged, and I didn't immediately have to buy a new laptop, but that did sort of move up the timeline on me buying a new laptop. And eventually it got to the point where even the editing required a long loading phase. So when I open a video file in Hitfilm Express, this varies based on how long the file is, but it will take between like 2 and 10 minutes for Hitfilm to like wake back up. And I'm not even talking about like uploading the video and audio files. I'm talking about like once those are uploaded, then the program just freaks out and needs 10 minutes to sort itself back out. And when I make cuts, it needs between like 30 seconds and 2 minutes to recalibrate. So this is really inefficient for me, and I need to find a new editing software, and I can't. So can you guys help me? What are the cool kids using to edit? I do have a PC, not a Mac, so iMovie is out of the question. Yeah. Is there some way I can make this easier for myself that will greatly improve my upload rate? Okay. Those are the silly reasons. Getting into the serious reasons. Main one is that I burnt out on reading. I have more hobbies than I have time for. I'm sure none of you can relate. And the pandemic exacerbated this. I took up running, which is a good hobby if you already have too many hobbies, because a big part of running is not running. I'd also taken up knitting. I took up knitting like 2 months before the pandemic started. So psychologically, it is not a pandemic or a lockdown hobby for me, but timeline wise, it was a lockdown hobby. So yeah, I keep incorporating, well, I gradually incorporate. I'm not that bad. I gradually incorporate new hobbies. And it had gotten to the point where in order for this to be sustainable, I basically, at any given time, would have like sort of a primary and a secondary hobby that I was focusing on. And then all of, all of the others would very much be put on the back burner. And I would dedicate little to none of my time to them. Now, because I had a YouTube channel about books, reading basically always had to be either the primary or the secondary hobby. I could never just like stop reading, because then I wouldn't have anything to talk about in my uploads. You can get some videos out of the stuff you've already read. But I was really committed. I don't want to say stuck in, but I wanted to do monthly reading wrap-ups, and that's a pretty standard video on booktube. A lot of people do them. So I felt like I had to be reading every month. I had to have something to show for it every month. And I felt like I had to be reading multiple books. I couldn't come on to a booktube wrap up and say, hey guys, the only thing I read this month was Monstrous Regiment by Terry Pratchett, which I've already read and talked about multiple times on this channel. So that's the video. Bye-bye. I felt like I had to be reading multiple books, or if I was only reading one book, it had to be a huge tome like Les Miserables or Moby Dick. I had to come on and say... I have an excuse that I only read one book, and that's because I read a gigantic book. And nobody else was putting this pressure on me. I was putting this pressure on myself, and I think the sort of collective environment was putting that pressure on me. And I think also the platform of YouTube was putting that pressure on me. I've moved beyond pressure at this point in my life. Yeah, so YouTube was putting pressure on me because they like... Your videos do better if you upload more regularly and more frequently. Yeah. So I really just got sick of reading. Maybe you can tell from my last wrap-ups that I posted before the hiatus. But hopefully I was concealing it. But reading really felt like a chore. I was dragging myself through every book. I was doing audiobooks more often because I could do something else while I was doing that, and it was less of a time commitment. So yeah, needed a break from reading. And I'd had sort of reading slumps before, where I wanted to focus on my other hobbies for a couple of months and let reading go by the wayside. But I had sort of managed to like push myself through those, and maybe taken like a couple of weeks off of reading, or just sort of slowed down for a month or two without stopping altogether. But I had done that enough times that I was well and truly burnt out, and I just needed to not read books, for, as it turns out, like 2 years. About a year ago, I did start reading again. I was reading mostly rereads. The only like book of significance that I have read that that wasn't talked about in my most recent wrap up. Because in my most recent wrap up, I talked about finding my new favorite book, so that's significant. But yeah, the only important news in my reading that you guys have missed is that I read The Professor by Charlotte Bronte, meaning I have now completed all of the finished Bronte novels, and I can officially say that The Professor is not good. Only read it if you are a Bronte completionist. It's just Villette, but way worse. You should read Villette, though. Villette is great. So yeah, I burnt out, and you can kind of, I could tell that I had burnt out because I decided to move back to the United States. I'm not going to go into all the reasons for why I decided to move back to the United States. If I'm happy to talk about that in the comments, though, if you have questions. So I decided to move back to the United States. This is going to be like a huge move, packing up / selling all of our stuff, moving to a new continent. Or an old continent. And I was relieved that I would have an excuse to not make booktube videos. I was relieved that this move would involve so much work that I wouldn't have to do my hobby. And that's when it's time to take a break from the hobby. So I was like, thank God, I'll be able to say, hey everyone, I'm doing this big move. I won't be uploading for a couple of months. I decided I was just gonna sort of ghost everyone. Did I ghost everyone? I can't remember. What was the last video? I haven't watched the last video I uploaded pre-hiatus. Oh no, I did. I re-uploaded the video, I lived like a Jane Austen character for a day, which I had initially uploaded to my costuming channel. I re-uploaded that here because if you guys think I've abandoned my booktube channel, you have no idea the extent to which I've abandoned my costuming channel. Making videos about historical costuming takes longer than making the costumes. Just not worth it to me. So, yes, the move, wonderful excuse, which I took full advantage of, and then just sort of kept that going for the next 2 years, 3 years. The other thing that was going on is a sad thing. So I was moving back in with my parents. David and I are still together. Nova is still alive. That's the family situation. Nova's my cat. So yeah, we were moving back in with my parents, just so we didn't have to worry about like buying a home or finding an apartment while we were on a different continent. We knew that my dad had dementia before I moved back, but when David and I arrived, he started deteriorating really rapidly. So I was spending a lot of time taking care of my dad. He is now in a memory care facility, a full-time residential facility, so I'm not doing that anymore. But if I do disappear again for a month or two, it's because I am planning a funeral, and I'll probably be back in short order. So that's gonna happen in like the next year. And I know, like, when people tell you a really sad thing, you feel like you have a duty to comment on it. I just want to let you know, we're not in a real life conversation. This is YouTube. I will not be offended if you leave a comment and don't mention that my dad has dementia and is dying. There's plenty of other things to talk about in this video, so I won't, you don't have to worry about me being like, well, they didn't talk about my sad life circumstance. How dare they? And the other thing about talking to people who are relatives of people with dementia is that am I gonna get emotional? Goddamn. Dementia is a really bad disease. Unlike those good diseases, dementia is a really bad disease, and it doesn't get better. It just ends eventually. Sorry, I needed a minute. But basically, messages of hope or optimism are not helpful because they're not true. But moving on to what I'm planning to do with the channel next. So as I mentioned, I'm going to keep uploading the podcast. I don't want to make a new channel for it. That sounds like work for me, and I don't care if it's inconvenient for my viewers. I think I am going to be posting less frequently than I did before. I was kind of aiming for a video a week, but I didn't have a super strict schedule. I think it's going to be more like 2 videos a month, like a wrap up and one other thing. And I have some ideas for what those other things will be, one of which will involve going through some very old videos of mine. And I know that the elephant in the room is Bard Book Club. Libby, are you going to do Bard Book Club again? When is Bard Book Club starting? Are we continuing with Julius Caesar, the one that was scheduled to be next? Give me a minute, guys. I just walked in. I just got back. The Bard Book Club videos were definitely the most demanding videos that I made on this channel. A lot of them were very long. A lot of them were like pushing an hour, and it took between 2 and 3 times as long to film as to the filming time was 2 or 3 times as long as the finished product. So yeah, they were really tiring to film. On a couple of occasions, I think I like made myself sick filming for multiple hours. So I don't want to do that again. Also, I cannot face editing another Bard Book Club video on Hitfilm. So I'm definitely not doing Bard Book Club until I find a new editing software. Because like there's a lot of cuts because I have to go reference the text. I have to go through my notes. I have to rephrase things because I realized that, that doesn't tie into a point that I made earlier. So I do want to do more Bard Book Club videos, but I don't want them to drive me off of booktube again. So that's the situation there. I hope that's answered all of your questions, but I expect that it has not. So I'm happy to continue this discussion in the comments. And the next video that's going to be up is my May wrap-up. So look forward to that. I'll see you then.